Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Meg Olson, and I have the pleasure as serving as the Grassroots Mobilization Director at Network. Thank you for joining us for our first webinar of the year, Network's 2025 Voting Record, Accountability for the Better World We All Deserve. Tonight, you will hear from my incredible colleagues, Lori Carafone, Laura Peralta Schulte, Giovanna Oaxaca, Jared Smith, and Catherine Gillette. I would also like to give a special thanks to Sister Emily Tukolsky, who is helping out on tech tonight, and everyone else who helped make this webinar possible. In a few moments, Lori will provide context and visioning for our voting record. Then you will hear from Laura, Jarrett, and Giovanna about healthcare, food security, housing, and immigration policies that happened this past year and where things stand now. And then Catherine will provide you with some guidance on how to share the voting record with your members of Congress. We will have plenty of times to answer your questions, so please type them into the Q&A box as you think of them. Before I pass it off to Lori, I want to give a little overview of Network's voting record. For more than 50 years, we have evaluated members of Congress on how they vote to advance or harm our ability to thrive as individuals, families, communities, and as a country. If our government relations team sends up a voting recommendation on a bill telling Congress to vote yes or no, we score them on their vote. This year, we are asking, did our lawmakers vote to protect our families, healthcare, food, and freedoms? Or did they only vote for the ultra wealthy? I think the numbers you see here are very telling. Friends, this year, Network's voting record is needed more than ever to shine a light and expose the truth that too many members of Congress failed the American people. And I'm so glad that you are going to help us do this important work. And now we're going to hear from Lori.
Sorry about that. Hello, everybody, and welcome. So 10 days ago, we witnessed a U.S. citizen, Alex Pretty, violently killed by ICE agents in Minneapolis. And it was not the first death at the hands of ICE on our streets and in immigration detention centers. These shocking events have frankly been a wake-up call for many of us about the immediate and existential threats to all that we hold dear in our country as justice seekers. Dignity, freedoms, life, and the common good. The impunity of federal immigration officials reflects the larger picture of the Trump administration, which is rapidly consolidating authoritarian power to shamelessly enrich themselves and the corporations and billionaires who partner with them to take from the people. Americans, including people of faith, are speaking up and defending what is right all across the country. We are showing up in rallies, marches, vigils, calls, protests, letters, songs, meeting with Congress, prayers, stories, and so many other actions. So thank you. Thank you to all of you for being part of this movement and for showing up for each other. Republican and Democratic members of Congress are reading the polls, showing that the president's support is slipping. Some Republicans will continue to distance themselves from the White House, as the House did in December when they helped pass bills on labor and when ACA tax credits passed out of the House. The funding bills that were passed today that support maternal and child health care, lower drug prices, and expand community health centers, for example, did not mirror the White House's funding priorities, and nearly all passed with strong bipartisan support. There may also soon be an opportunity to push for affordable housing legislation that Network has long sought. Together, we must remain persistent. Attacks on our voting rights, further attacks on our immigrant communities, attacks on the environment that allow polluters to dirty our water and pillage our lands, these are all real threats. Thankfully, 2026 will be a short year for legislative action. Congress will focus on passing legislation between now and the end of July, with a main emphasis on government funding. The elections this fall will affect all legislative work, and many final legislative actions are not likely until after November. We begin our work in 2026, as we always do, with accountability. The 2025 voting record we will discuss today helps us hold members of Congress accountable. It is more difficult every day for us to afford healthcare, food, and housing, and to participate fully in a system that should protect our rights to speak and act for justice and share equitably in our country's resources. With the voting record, we ask, did our elected leaders vote to protect our healthcare, food, and freedoms, or to enrich billionaires? This year, we will push Congress to champion policies that benefit we the people, not billionaires, and to rein in this unscrupulous administration. We will ensure that everyone, working families, immigrant neighbors, LGBTQ friends and families, children, Black and Brown communities, young adults, not only have a place at the table, but a say in shaping the future we share together. This only happens with your work. Through last year's chaos, you, our network community, responded with clarity and resolve for justice. At every turn, you advocated for policies that protect human dignity. You organized, accompanied members of your community, shared our sister spirit-filled message, and sustained us in our work. Thank you all for making a difference. We are seeing the tide turn toward the common good. I am grateful for your presence here today as we continue to make change together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lori. And now I'm inviting Laura Peralta to come talk to us about healthcare and food.
All right. Thank you so much. And I too want to just echo my thanks to everybody who is with us today. I feel like as we're walking through last year, it is painful, but we must do it. So let us just kind of plant ourselves and recognize that the 2025 Republican budget law was the single largest cut to healthcare in our nation's history. It cut Medicaid, the Affordable Care Act, and also impacted Medicare too. According to the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, nearly 15 million people will lose their coverage and become uninsured as a direct result of that bill. And everyone, everywhere, is paying more for healthcare. Over 20 million Americans have seen or will see their premiums double or triple And that is directly because Congress failed to do what you were asking for through the entirety of the year and extend those tax credits for the Affordable Care Act. Now, many folks have switched coverage in the Affordable Care Act to plans that are more affordable, but that have way less coverage and higher deductibles. For example, the average annual deductible for the lowest level plan, the bronze plan, under the Affordable Care Act for this year is $7,500 per individual. That is just too much. Hospitals, clinics, nursing homes around the country are already cutting back and closing their doors as a result of this law. And why? We always have to remember it, as Lori said at the beginning, to pay for tax cuts to billionaires and to fund mass deportation. And it also allows CEOs at healthcare companies to gain at our expense. So what are you seeing back home? You are undoubtedly looking at what is going on in your state legislatures. What you'll see is states really looking to shift costs and benefits as they try to pay for what they have never had to pay for before. That means cutting provider reimbursement rates, increasing co-pays and deductibles for patients, even eliminating optional benefits under Medicaid. What they're also looking at is making it harder for people to access the programs that they need and deserve, cutting back on eligibility. So our job today is to connect the dots when you're talking to your members of Congress, to make sure that they understand, that you understand, that the cuts that you're seeing back in the state are a result of their work. And I do want to, as we're finishing healthcare, just really pick up what Lori started off with early. All the while when we're doing this, we're going to be looking for new opportunities in health. So passing two maternal and infant health provisions that are into law as of the president's signing is huge, along with the other benefits. So we're not giving up, and we hope you aren't either. Next slide. I'm also just going to give you a quick review on food, because food is essential and related to the health of our people. And what we know is that 48 million Americans live in food insecure households. That is 14 million kids. What we also know is that the administration is making it harder to track now, because the Department of Agriculture is no longer releasing its annual report that tracks who is hungry, and that is the gold standard that has really been in existence for decades. Just like in the healthcare space, that budget law was the single largest cut to SNAP in our history, again, to give tax cuts to the wealthy among us. And CBO estimates that 4 million people will either see their food assistance terminated or significantly cut. Who are they? We're talking about parents whose children are 14 or older are going to see potential cuts. We're talking about veterans, homeless individuals, people with disabilities, kids that are transitioning out of foster care. All are going to have new paperwork requirements that puts their access at risk. Now, those requirements were implemented 2 days ago, February 1st, and SNAP recipients will need to show proof of a job by March 1. Also, in terms of what you're seeing at home, the states now are going to have to pay for things that the federal government has long paid for as it relates to food. 2 shifts I just want to draw your attention to. First, the federal government will only cover 25% of administrative costs for SNAP. And beginning in 2028, for the first time in history, states are going to have to pay for part of those SNAP benefits. Friends, we are going to try to mitigate harm and hold our electeds official. We are going to look for opportunities in the upcoming funding process, FY27 funding, to increase WIC, to try to counter some of the cuts by increasing access to school lunches, to summer meals, to after-school meals, to Meals on Wheels. And we are going to work together to set the stage to get rid of those cuts in the long term. So stay with us, and let me go ahead and turn it now over to Jared, who's going to talk to you about housing. Thank you, Jared.
Thank you, Laura. Good evening. My name is Jared Smith. I cover housing policy along with a range of other issues for Network. I want to thank all of you for joining us this evening. I will provide a few updates on federal housing legislation that is moving in Congress. But before I start, I want to begin with a simple truth. Stable housing is about human dignity, full stop. When families have a safe, affordable place to call home, children do better in school, parents can focus on work, and communities thrive. This isn't just policy, it's about our neighbors, our values, and our shared responsibility to ensure everyone has a decent place to call home. This is the social contract we embrace and strive to improve every day. Let me give you some context. Last year, we faced a real threat to housing programs. The administration proposed deep cuts to programs that millions of families depend on: rental housing assistance vouchers, public housing maintenance, and grants to keep people experiencing homelessness in their homes. These cuts would have had a disproportionately effect on seniors who rely on housing vouchers to afford rent. Also, families with children who need stable homes and veterans. We got to protect our veterans transitioning out of homelessness. But here's the good news. Congress said no to the administration. Through a bipartisan appropriations process, and yes, I did say bipartisan, lawmakers rejected these cuts and passed the approach bill that covers the transportation, housing, and urban development spending bill for 2026. The House passed the package earlier today. Programs like housing choice vouchers, which help 2.3 million low-income families afford rent, are funded. Community development grants that revitalize neighborhoods are protected, and the Continuum of Care program as a schedule for awarding grants to grantees. This was a major victory, and it happened because people like you made their voices heard. Now that funding housing programs is secured, Congress is tackling the bigger challenge. We simply don't have enough affordable housing in America. Families are spending 40%, 50%, or even 60% of their income on rent. Young families can't afford to move out of their parents' homes. Essential workers, such as teachers and nurses and firefighters, are being priced out of communities they serve each and every day. Two major bills are moving through Congress right now to address this crisis. The Senate recently passed the Road to Housing Act, S2651. It was attached to what we call a must-pass bill, but the House did not add it to its version of the NDAA. The bill provides rental assistance demonstrations, disaster recovery reforms, move to work expansion, homelessness program reforms, and veterans housing provisions. It also streamlines federal regulations that add cost to construction. On the other side of the chamber, in the House is working on what is called the Housing for the 21st Century Act. This package is a little different. This bill modernizes how we deliver housing assistance, using better technology to protect families with available homes and ensuring vouchers work in neighborhoods and good schools and job opportunities. Specifically, it includes unique provisions on what is called point access block building guidelines. That's a design technique, eviction helplines, and temperature sensor pilot programs. It's reported that the chair of the Financial Services Committee, Mr. Hill, will bring the bill to the floor for a vote next week at the earliest. If we have a direct comparison of these two bills, There are 14 substantially similar areas in the bills. 6% of the House and 35% of the Senate bill. Both bills share a critical goal: getting more homes built, supply in this country to families so the cost of housing will come down. Here's where we are now. Once the House and Senate pass their version of a housing bill, and this hasn't happened in the last 10 years, we hope that both chambers will compromise and be able to come up with a package that will pass the House and the Senate. We need regulatory relief that actually lowers costs without sacrificing safety or quality of housing. We need smarter use of technology without losing the human touch that helps families navigate complex systems to either rent or buy housing. And most importantly, we need to keep people at the center, not developers, not AI, but actual families to try to find a decent place to live. We could see negotiations on a final piece of legislation in early spring if both bills pass in the next few weeks. This bill will be a significant step forward, the biggest housing reform we've seen in a decade, but it won't solve everything overnight. We'll need to stay engaged, hold members of Congress accountable, and keep pushing for a society where everyone, and I mean everyone, has a safe, affordable home. Finally, never forget, housing is infrastructure. Housing is stability. Housing is dignity. Right now, we have a real opportunity to advance these principles. Thank you. And now I will toss it to my colleague, Giovanna.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here this evening. My name is Giovanna, and I cover immigration issues at Network. As Lori already stated, in recent weeks, heartbreak has both filled our news feeds and been part of our communities and daily lives. Under President Trump, the current administration has adopted one of the most extreme immigration approaches of recent history, and has led to the devastation of our families, communities, and including our economic vitality. In just a few months, the Trump administration has transformed numerous federal agencies into enforcement arms, weaponizing them against neighbors and people in our community. But it cannot be understated how the second Trump administration has worked in close coordination with a Republican-controlled Congress to pass immigration bills that enable and expand executive power. And I am including the Big Bad Bill. Last July, the Big Bad Bill turbocharged funding for mass deportations, providing over $170 billion for enforcement and the border. But not only did this bill significantly expand the federal government's detention and mass deportation apparatus, it also raised fees to renew and maintain lawful status and work permits for many immigrants, and it gutted healthcare and food assistance eligibility for some of the most vulnerable immigrants among us, including refugees, asylum seekers, and certain other immigrants with lawful status. With new arrest quotas every day and the largest influx of funding for ICE in its 20-year history, we've seen the consequences of this mass deportation agenda laid bare. The number of people in ICE detention has risen by 75%. And in fact, we've seen a 2,450% increase in the number of people who have no criminal record held in ICE detention on any given day. This really turns on the head the administration's own claims that they are going after and targeting specific populations. And you've probably seen this in your own community, but the consequences are there. These priorities of the administration, enabled by the Republican-controlled Congress, have caused harm to both our public safety and our economy. In 2025, hundreds of agents were diverted from investigating drug violations for immigration enforcement, while worker shortages in construction and agriculture means a growing cost of living every day for Americans. but it also means a loss of livelihood and multiple breadwinners for many families. Looking back a little bit, even before the big bad bill, Congress passed the Lake and Riley Act, a bill that requires the mandatory detention of anyone charged with, arrested for, convicted of, or who admits to certain crimes, even shoplifting. Congress has also come pretty close to passing the SAVE Act, a bill that could potentially disenfranchise millions of American citizens, including women who have not changed their last names. Their last names don't match their birth certificates, and people experiencing homelessness who do not have documentation that they can provide at polling stations. And just this January, in fact, only a few days ago, lawmakers attempted to provide additional unchecked funding for ICE and CBP through the annual appropriations bill for the Department of Homeland Security. But your critical advocacy in the last several days made it possible that this bill would be delayed and we could actually hammer home what matters, which is that ICE and CBP should not be receiving any additional funding until they make meaningful changes that lift the violence and abuse that we've seen perpetuated across the country. So looking ahead, we can anticipate a number of things to happen. This is a very critical window of time that we've just entered. What we're hoping to see is that in the 2-week window between now and February 13th, we will see lawmakers compelled to push for meaningful changes to curb the abuses that we've seen on the ground every day, and to not provide any new funding for ICE and CBP unless these militarized deployments that we've seen in Minneapolis, Maine, and other places are rolled back, and that the practices that harm and destabilize our community cease. We must also continue to call for accountability and immediate action from Congress, not 2 or 3 weeks from now, but as quickly as possible. In the next couple of days, we can also anticipate that the Senate will vote on the SAVE Act again, or attempt to vote on the SAVE Act, and even potentially try to move other punitive and draconian immigration bills. So we'll keep monitoring that situation and keeping you apprised of opportunities to raise your voices. We saw over 4,000 of you submit letters to your members of Congress. People have called, people have peacefully stood vigil. It's a demonstration that your advocacy matters and that people are paying close attention, and you're shifting the tide on this. It shows that we're resilient and we can be prepared for what lies ahead. We've seen mass demonstrations from Los Angeles to Minnesota and Maine of people across faiths, across geographies, across backgrounds, stand united in defense of our neighbors and in defense of our freedoms. And I want to spotlight that just a few days ago, there was a Hill Day here on Capitol Hill that drew more than 400 faith leaders in just a matter of almost 72 hours, including 25 faith leaders from Minnesota. It was a remarkable showing, and it was a great thing to be a part of. So once again, we must remember to be resilient, to continue to push for strong oversight, transparency, and accountability, for justice for our neighbors, and to continue to uphold the dignity of immigrants as rooted in the gospel's message. So thank you, and I'll pass it over to my colleague, Catherine, now.
Thanks so much, Giovanna. We are incredibly grateful for your summary and for all of your leadership in the immigration policy space. My name is Catherine Gillette, and I'm the Senior Grassroots Mobilization Organizer with Network. It is really wonderful to be here with you all. I have to say, our government relations team and our communications team did a beautiful job pulling together this 2025 voting record resource, and I'm super excited to share it with you all. That said, in my opinion, what makes the voting record so incredibly impactful is you all, the constituents, reaching out to your local offices and letting them know that this document reflects your values and your priorities. So, what am I here to ask you tonight? I have 3 big asks for you. First, I encourage you all to read the voting record if you have not already. If you don't have a copy of it, we will be sending out an email tomorrow and you'll have a link to the voting record. So spend some time reading it over. Look at how your members of Congress scored. Look at how your friends and families, members of Congress, has scored. And then we encourage you to share it. Pass it along to your family, your friends, post it on social media, help others to experience this resource. And ask number 3 is for you to sign up to deliver it. Again, we will make sure that you have this link tomorrow in our follow-up email, but we hope that you will take the time to sign up and make that commitment to help deliver the voting record. Slide, please. Alrighty, so delivering the voting record. What does this actually look like? Well, as I mentioned, we do want you to sign up. That's super important. And we are asking you to sign up to deliver the voting record over February recess, which is going to be February 17th to the 20th. This is a window when your members of Congress are going to be home in their states, in their districts, and it is incredibly strategic to deliver at this time. That said, we know that sometimes scheduling with these offices can be a little bit tricky. And so just do the best you can. Your delivery will be impactful, whether it's in February over February recess, or maybe a little bit later in the month, or even in March. Just do the best you can. I do want to flag that the signing up part is really, really important. It allows us to do a couple of different things. First, it allows us to track your engagement. It's really helpful for our staff to know which offices are getting a visit and also what you learned at those visits. Signing up also allows us to provide you with materials. For example, we want to make sure that all the 100% voters get 100% voter certificates. And so by signing up, we can help to get you those materials. Signing up also allows us to connect you with other advocates from your state or from your district. Whenever possible, it's great to go on these deliveries with other folks. And so if there are multiple people from your district, we will do our best to get you all connected. We recognize with gerrymandering, sometimes it makes sense to go on these visits together. Sometimes it doesn't. You could be in the same district and be 3 hours apart, in which case, totally fine if you don't want to make that trek. But when it does make sense, we encourage you to go together. We also encourage you to recruit others to join you. It really is more fun and also more powerful to engage in this work as a community. For the deliveries, you have a couple of different options. Kind of choose your own adventure. First, you can schedule a meeting with the district office. To do this, you just call the local office and ask for the contact information for your district or state director. They might put you through to the scheduler, that's fine too. Just remember, these meetings are a great opportunity to build a relationship with the local staff or to grow a relationship with the local staff. The meetings that you schedule with the district office, oftentimes they'll be in person, but sometimes they'll be virtual. That's fine too. Every office is functioning a little bit differently these days. And so if you can get a meeting in any context, go ahead and take it. Your second option is to complete a drop-off at the local district office. Now, things are a little bit different this year. I would say if you're doing a drop-off, I would still encourage you to go ahead and schedule it with the staff. We are hearing that due to security measures, oftentimes these offices are not open to the public, not available to the public. And so you really do need that appointment even to get in the door and to do a drop-off. So just reach out to the office and let them know that you would like to stop by and they can help set that up. If you do a drop-off, we do encourage you to make sure that you attach a note with the details with the voting record. So you want to include information like who you are, what the voting record is, why it's so important to you, just so they have a little bit more context when they pass it along to the staff. A couple of notes about both the scheduling a visit or doing a drop-off. We know that, again, due to gerrymandering, there's not always a local office near to us. And so keep an eye out. Sometimes offices do kind of a mobile office hours situation. And so they may travel around the district or the state, and that would also be an opportunity to deliver the voting record. Your third opportunity is to send an email to your members of Congress with the voting record, and we will have this opportunity set up on our website, so stay tuned for that. And then the fourth opportunity is to write a letter to the editor. We've talked about it many times. We know that letters to the editor are one of the most read sections of the newspaper. It's a really, really great opportunity to communicate with your community. And it's also an opportunity for public accountability. So if your member of Congress did well, it's a chance to celebrate them. If your member of Congress didn't do so well, it's a chance to hold them accountable and encourage them to do better. And if you would like to write a letter to the editor, I know that the grassroots mobilization team, the communications team, we would all be very happy to support you on this. Just reach out. Slide. Alrighty, so the number one question that I get asked all the time is there really value in delivering the voting record? And the answer is yes. If your member of Congress scored really, really well, there is a whole lot of value in thanking them for their support of our policy priorities. They need to hear it. They need to hear a thank you sometimes. It is a really, really hard time to be a staffer. It is a really, really hard time to be a member of Congress, and your support goes a long way. It really does make a difference. I have to say, our teams have been really creative and fun with this in the past. We've had people deliver New York cheesecake to New York members of Congress's offices. We've had people do balloons and framed certificates and all kinds of fun celebrations to celebrate those high scores on the voting record. And if they scored well, not only do you want to celebrate them, but you want to ask them how you can support them in the year ahead. What do they need from you? How can you be helpful? And again, as I mentioned, we also will provide you with those 100% voter certificates. We know that members of Congress love these, and they often display them on their office wall or on social media. So we will definitely make sure that you get those where appropriate. Now, if they scored less than 100%, we still want to thank them whenever they did have a vote that was aligned with our priorities. So if they scored 14%, you thank them for that one vote where they did a good job and celebrate that one vote. But then also, of course, we do want to express our disappointment where they did not live up to our expectations. And this is an opportunity to share personal stories about the impact of legislation on your family, on your friends, on your community. Let them know what the impact of their vote has been. And then it's an opportunity to express your hopes that they will do better in the year ahead, and to let them know that you are paying attention and you'll be following up. Again, that accountability piece. Now, I think it's important to pay attention to tone a little bit. We know that some of you are a wee bit frustrated by your members of Congress's votes. Just a friendly reminder that your tone is really, really important. We ask that you use a tone that is respectful and nonviolent. We are doing these visits as people of faith and as moral witnesses, and also you're representing Network. So we do ask that you are very intentional and mindful about your tone and your interactions with the staff or with the members. Also important to note, you do not have to be a policy expert or an expert in all the different votes featured in the voting record. There are some votes in the voting record that we did not widely engage our field on. Sometimes it is more strategic to have a quiet strategy kind of behind the scenes with our government relations folks, or a very targeted strategy. Maybe we were just engaging folks from one district or state, or it's possible that we were really busy engaging you on something else really important at that time. And so we wanted to focus your attention one place, and our government relations folks were focusing their attention somewhere else. So just a note, you do not need to do hours of research. Instead, we urge you to talk about the one or two issues that matter most to you, share your stories, share your values. There is definitely content that you are familiar with. I know the big bad bill, the big bad budget law from the summer, many of you spent months and months and months advocating, passing out zines. You were engaging for months on issues like SNAP and the ACA premium tax credits and funding for DHS. So there's definitely content in there that you are very familiar with, and we just encourage you to focus on the issues that you are the most passionate about and have the most to share about. And again, lead with your values and share those stories. Slide. Alrighty, some final thoughts. It is really, really, really important that you report back to us and let us know how it went. It is really valuable for our government relations team to hear from you all about what you heard from your members of Congress to help fine-tune our strategies moving forward. We take the information that you share with us and apply it to our work. So it is very helpful to us. We also love to see your photos. In my last couple of slides, you saw lots of photos from previous voting record deliveries, and we love to put them on social media, throw them in Connection Magazine, use them in emails, put them on our website. So please do go ahead if you're able, take some photos at your delivery. It can be outside of the office, it can be with staffers, with members. We love to see it all. And we are also here to support you every single step of the way. Let us know if you need our help, because your deliveries really do make a difference, and your commitment to advocacy inspires us every single day. So we are here for you, and we are grateful that you are here with us. And with that, I'm going to turn things back over to my colleague, Meg.
Thanks so much, Catherine. I think just before we go to the Q&A, so remember everyone, you are hopefully either delivering the voting record in person or sending an email or writing a letter to the editor or a combination of the two or three. And hopefully you'll get to maybe meet some new network members in your district or in your community along the way, or be reconnected with old friends. It's a great opportunity to just build relationships both with your office and other network members. So this is great. Before we get to the Q&A, just a little special ask tonight to please support our work. If you enjoy this webinar and all of our resources, our recent Dilexite study guide, just know that this would not happen without your support. And so we're hoping that tonight you can join us by giving a donation to help us advance the mission and engage in justice work in this critical year. So if you give a gift of $50 or more, or $20 if you are a senior citizen, a student, or on a limited income, you will become a dues-paying member of Network, which means you'll receive our Connection magazine. And right now we have over 5,600 members across the country, and I think we should have a lot more. You know, this allows us to really do our work to its fullest and be beholden to you, our members, and nobody else's interests, but those who share our values. So please do consider giving us, becoming a member or giving a smaller donation tonight if you enjoyed this webinar and really appreciate our voting record. And with that, I am going to invite all of my colleagues to turn their cameras back on for some questions and answers. Let's see. Welcome back, everybody. All right. We have lots of questions about the voting record, actually, Catherine, but I think I would love to hear a couple people's. Laura, you're just grinning, and I think I'm going to pitch this question to you first.
My gosh, be careful what I'm grinning about. Yes.
And then Catherine, you can follow up with some pro tips here. So, one of our participants tonight said, my representative scored a 14%. He is running again this year. Would it be a better use of my energy to bury him or like hold him against the wall? So,
Oh my gosh. Well, let us say we are an organization founded in Catholic social principle, which calls for peace. So there is no pinning, no burying, and we will start there. But I don't want to be cheeky, but I think it's a both and. You know, I really love Catherine's suggestion about trying to find something, you know, that you agree on to have that sacred conversation. Because what is true is that people in office oftentimes get detached from their constituents. Washington is a very shiny place. and they spend a lot of time here. So just, being that voice that is reaching out for a conversation. I often think we are the women. I always picture myself as the woman in the Bible where she is continually just going after the judge, pleading for justice and mercy, and finally she wears him down. So that might be our role here. So do that. I actually think if it is really problematic, what they don't like is things like letter to the editors that call them out. So that's a perfectly fine tool for accountability. And frankly, a lot of what I think they're going to be doing about this bill is to pretend like it wasn't them, it was the states. It's the states that cut healthcare. It's the states that are cutting SNAP. So really being able to put that out where people see it so that they know who is accountable for what, I think is really very strategic. Catherine, what did I miss?
I love it. I think it's both and.
Yeah. And Laura, you make a really good point about the state. We don't want people blaming, their legislatures and their governors. They need to know why these cuts are happening. You know, People are maybe even blaming the county in some situations, and it's like, no, it is way up here in Congress what happened in June, and this is why, like, our Medicaid, our nursing homes are at risk. So, we have a couple more questions about the voting record. Someone wants to know, instead of emailing taking our action alert and emailing the voting record, would it be helpful to mail the voting record with a cover letter to the local office? Any thoughts, Catherine?
Yeah, I have thoughts. So I think most powerful, of course, is going to be if you're able to make the delivery in person, whether it is a drop off or a meeting. That said, we definitely recognize that is not a possibility for everyone. And so I think any way you can get this into your member of Congress's hands is good. So if that means taking a copy of it, printing it off, writing a cover letter explaining who you are, why this is important to you, how it reflects your values, and popping that in the mail to the local office, I think that's great. As I mentioned, we will also have that email opportunity available. But as I said before, I think what makes the voting record so powerful is when members of Congress hear about it from their constituents. So anything you can do to support this, we are grateful.
Great.
Yeah, and if I could jump in quickly, offices, they count mail. If you send snail mail, they're going to pay attention. So, if you have the opportunity, do it.
Thanks so much. Let's see. Okay, Giovanna, we have a couple related questions here about immigration, of course. So I think there's a question about dreamers, about is there an opportunity, has there been any movement, or is there any opportunities to amplify bills around dreamers, childcare, hospitality, and agricultural workers? Any legislation like that we should be aware of?
Thank you so much for the question. So it was only a few months ago that we were standing side by side with some of our national partners on the reintroduction of the DREAM Act in the Senate. This is the last time, actually, that Senator Durbin will be reintroducing the bill as he announced his retirement. But it is an incredibly important bill, and it was such an honor to be there in the room with him and other advocates as they announced the reintroduction. The bill, along with several bills that I'd like to name, like the American Families United Act, the American Dream and Promise Act in the House, and other bills, are really important. However, in this political environment that we're in, almost all of those bills would be vetoed by the president, which is why pressure on individual members of Congress is not only crucial for getting them to support legislation and becoming co-sponsors, but then to also get them to vote. And then the third part is that they then apply pressure to the president, who who is compelled both by the voice of the people, as we've seen in the last 2 weeks, denouncing the murders of Alex Preddy, to shift his tone, to shift his opinion. So that's where all of those pieces are connected. And even though it might seem kind of futile to go talk to your member of Congress because they don't have a great record on immigration bills, educating them, including up to the point of asking them to become co-sponsors of future immigration legislation for Dreamers. That's how you steadily make a difference.
Thanks so much, Gio. Laura, we have a question about healthcare.
Yes.
We obviously know that seniors are incredibly vulnerable, as you mentioned, especially with the dual eligible Medicare, Medicaid, especially in rural communities with the healthcare funding. Can you speak to anything about how this is impacting the Medicare Advantage programs
Sure.
and how they're reducing their benefits?
Sure. I'm going to put something in the chat from Kaiser, which I thought they did a great job of kind of breaking down what 2026 looks like in terms of Medicare Advantage. But let me back up, because really the point of our conversation today is about accountability. And just have to say out loud, you cannot take $1 trillion out of a healthcare system and not have repercussions. So you probably know that CVS Health, Humana, United Health Group all announced that they were pulling back on Medicare Advantage and Part D prescription drugs last year. It was announced in the fall. And these changes are a response to the financial pressures, both in terms of reductions in government funding and rising health costs. So in terms of how insurers dealt with it, they are basically scaling back their less profitable streams of benefits. So let me go ahead and put in the Kaiser report, because I do think it might be helpful to kind of get a more comprehensive look. And I'm so glad for the question, because what you're going to be seeing and what we need to hear from you, and I cannot emphasize enough, we need to have you on the ground letting us know when hospitals close, letting us know what you're seeing at your food pantry, what you're seeing at different places, because you're going to see it before we do. And it's really, really critical for us to help you connect the dots. And the Medicare Advantage program, even though they didn't specifically go after it in that big ugly bill, it is a direct result of taking $1 trillion out of the system and insurance companies trying to figure out what to do.
Thanks so much, Laura, and thanks for putting that resource in the chat. I know this is an issue that a lot of people are very anxious about. Goodness. Catherine, this is like a classic question that I know you love to answer. Someone from the wonderful state of Oregon, where all their members agree with our values and are some of the highest scoring people in the voting record. How can this person and her community better impact lawmakers from other states?
I love this question. All right, so first, I just want to name, it is really, really important to contact your members of Congress, even when they agree with you. So keep making those calls, saying thank you, encouraging them, asking them how you can be supportive. But also, if you find yourself in the position of wanting to impact other states and other districts, do not call those members of Congress if you are not a constituent. Instead, think about your family, think about your friends, think about people you know who live elsewhere in the country, and reach out to them and encourage them to engage in advocacy. We know that it is not effective for you to be spending time making calls to offices that are not your own. It is incredibly effective for you to be doing a little organizing of your own, reaching out to the people in your life and encouraging them to engage in advocacy with their own elected officials.
Thanks so much. we have on the other end of the spectrum, we have a representative who's supposed to be from New Jersey. Maybe he does not live in New Jersey. He refuses to attend town halls. He doesn't meet with his members. Um, how do we reach this person? Is it okay, is it still okay to write a letter to the editor in a local newspaper? Jarrett, you're nodding. Talk to us about this.
Yeah, I mean, in this environment, that's happening with a lot of members. Yes, write a letter to the editor. Send that letter to the editor to the member staff. You just because they're not meeting with you doesn't mean you stop trying to communicate with them. Once those, whether it's an email, preferably, snail mail, a phone call, once those things come into the office, they are taking note. Does not mean that, it rises to the level that, some of the other pieces or some of their other constituencies might get access, but please continue to contact people, even though they're trying to put up these barriers to stop you.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, yes, and it's very important, the local papers especially, there are staff of that member of Congress who are just looking for their names. And so naming that member of Congress in the local paper will make sure that that letter to the editor is gets their attention. All right, we have a couple questions about network collaborating with non-faith-based groups. So, quick round robin, what is your favorite secular partner to work with?
That's not fair, Meg. We can't pick one. I mean, we
Quick.
work with so many. I mean, they're probably
I know.
watching this webinar, or they will
Okay,
watch the
maybe not.
recording.
Okay,
We can't do
maybe just
that.
one you worked with this week. Okay, favorite is maybe a little unfair. We don't want people getting angry.
I mean,
I can jump in first.
Okay.
Great, Laurie. Whoop.
One that we worked with this week, Doctors for America, which is an organization that does incredible advocacy, totally aligned with our moral orientation towards the common good, and are just fighters for justice. And we love to see our siblings who are working in the healthcare space also looking out for the common good. So lots of synergies there. We're really excited.
Can I cheat a little bit, Meg? Because the Coalition
Sure.
on Human Needs has all our partners there too. So shout out to Deb and Meredith, and you've got Americans for Tax Fairness, and you've got the unions. And so I'm going to cheat right there. Jarrett, who's your favorite? And then Geo too.
Laura, I do like Groundwork. They're fantastic. Great research arm. Also American or Economic Security. Anna, she's wonderful to work with. But there are just so many of them. We attend a lot of meetings with secular organizations.
Absolutely. Gia, one more.
I'm going to cheat a little and say there are a lot of people with conscience, whether they are, Catholics or not Catholics, who feel really strongly about the issues. They care about human dignity, and they're showing up in really surprising and wonderful ways. So I can't pick a partner. I'm just glad that everyone feels a strong pull to morality and to having a government that prioritizes the common good.
Catherine.
I'll just echo that by saying I think one of our biggest strengths is the relationships that you all have with local partners. And lately, we've been hearing a lot about the immigration partners that you've been working with locally, and just so much deep gratitude for how they are providing leadership in your local communities.
Absolutely. Amen to that. And it's
Meg,
going to take all of us. Yes,
I
Jared.
have to mention one because I sit on their steering committee.
Oh.
ABC, the American Benefit for Children. So that's a fantastic group, and so I want to make sure I mention them.
Absolutely. No, thank you. And as you can see, yes, we work with tons of faith partners. We were just with Faith in Action and so many other faith leaders from all different traditions. Last week, you hear a plethora of non-faith partners that we work with every day. And in this moment, it's going to take all of us with our values. Yes, and shout out to our union friends, AFL-CIO and a CIU and so many others. We are at time. I know there are Emily is frantically answering questions about just how do I get my 100% certificate. So you are going to get a very detailed email tomorrow morning. Thank you to Catherine, Emily, and Alyssa for getting that out the door and with all the details. And we will follow up with you. But when you sign up, someone from the grassroots mobile to deliver the voting record in any way, someone from the grassroots mobilization team will follow up and accompany you in your advocacy. So thank you for joining us tonight, and to those who are watching maybe in the next couple of days. And we will move forward together. So